Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Leaving a Rich Legacy. I am your host, Jessica Rich, and I am so excited to have my guest with here me this. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Leaving a Rich Legacy. I am your host, Jessica Rich, and I am super excited for my guest with me tonight. So, these are my three uncles. Some of you may have seen my Uncle Bobbie on a podcast previously, but I am so excited to be able to bring family on this podcast because, as you all know, this podcast is a love letter to my younger self and it's an opportunity to shed light on various topics that we do not often discuss in the Black and Brown community. And when I think about my uncles, they are successful, they're fathers, they're great men in the community, they're leaders, and there is just so much knowledge and wisdom and experience. So to have all three of them on the podcast, I am honored and blessed. So, uncles, thank you for being here.
We're honored to be here.
All right, so we're going to get started. And the
Good to
first thing I love to do is ask my guest, like, how would you define yourself? I think being able to know who you are really means a lot. So I'm going to start with Uncle Pat. If you can start us off and share who is Patrick Williams?
Well, I'm a father of three beautiful, educated young ladies. I'm a husband. Um, my 37th anniversary is tomorrow. So I'm a soldier for life. Uh, I'm a believer in our Almighty. So, um, and I'm a man with both sympathy and empathy for others, your fellow man and woman. Um, and I believe we live in the greatest country in the world. That's me, Pat Williams.
Awesome. All right, next go to Uncle Eddie. Who is Eddie Williams?
well, I am a simple man. I consider myself a moderate liberal conservative. I'm basically moderate on most views, but I can go one way or the other on some other views. Um, Highly organized, sort of regimented, also a father, um, a husband, but those are the basic things. Caring and giving is important to me. I do it basically on a daily basis. I can look at my neighbors right now who I help because I got some elderly neighbors, but that's me. I'm always willing to help someone.
All right, and
That's it.
last but not least, Uncle Bobbie. Who is Bobbie Williams?
Who is Bobbie Williams? Had to answer this before, but obviously I'm a husband, father, grandfather. I am a man of faith. I am a leader. I am a community servant, a servant of the people. That's who I am at the moment. As Dad Parker said, Brother Patrick, my Irish twin, I'm a soldier for life. Some folks don't understand what that really means, but at the core of who we are is about our compassion and caring for man. That's what I do on a daily basis, try to make a difference in my community. But that's who Bobbie Williams is in a nutshell.
All right, so I heard one, I love that, you all were able to define who you are outside of just your roles. In life, I think sometimes we are so attached to roles that we forget to be able to define who we are outside of that. So I love that you were able to share that piece of you. I heard community. I also heard that you are a soldier for life. And that's going to lead us into our first question because you all served. which I know that is an honor for you all to do so, but you all were able to lead and make an impact and protect our country. So I would love to know, why did you decide to join the Army? And Uncle Eddie, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I attended college in 1976, Eastern Kentucky University. And the first 2 years of ROTC were mandatory, or you can take these options that were sort of ridiculous to me. And I thought that it would be fun, the 2 years taking classes and all. So the summer of my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I had to make a decision about whether I was going to contract or not. I decided, well, I was a police administration major, so I wasn't obviously going to be a cop. On the outside, that was one of my choices when I branched in the Army. But when that decision came up, I said, yeah, I'm going to try it out for 3 years. So when I went in, it was just doing 3 years. The thing that was really pretty wild, we didn't have anybody that was close to us, like an aunt or uncle, or someone that could really tell us. I could talk to my great uncle Sammy, but those were elderly people, and we didn't really get in the military at that time. So it would have been them really wanting to talk about it versus us. So that's why I joined. It was mandatory the first 2 years, and I thought it would be fun. I went out and did all the stuff with the cadets. But that summer of going into my junior year, I just decided I'm going to check it out for 3 years. And it was a good decision.
That's
how I ended up.
Okay, so Uncle Eddie, you're the oldest. So you led with joining the Army first. So I'll ask the others, why'd you join the Army?
We'll let Uncle Bobbie go next, since he's next in line.
Well, which is a fundamentally great question as well. My decision was predicated on discussions with Eddie. And as a youth, Eddie was kind of like my mentor. We had mentors paired up with each one of the kids. So Eddie, since I was at the top of the bottom four, Eddie was my mentor. I didn't want to be like Mike. I wanted to be like Eddie. That's what I wanted to be like. And so when Eddie was describing his journey in college, we got to a point where he was discussing what we call a SAL, a scholar, an athlete, and a leader. Those are the core things that would make a good commissioned officer. And I subscribed to those things and believed in them early on. So I joined ROTC immediately. Some of my football teammates thought I was crazy, but I joined right off because it had all of this additional value that it added just in the core classes, your MS1 and 2 classes. So I followed in that line and thinking like, okay, I want to be like my brothers. These are the things that he's doing. And at a certain point, he was already on active duty. Now we're still in college, and it was truly an honor for Pat and I, eventually him attending our commissioning ceremonies and that part as we transitioned from on campus to active duty and on to our officer basic courses. So my journey started with my brother Eddie being the individual that kind of inspired me to want to join.
So for me, Jessica, it's a little bit different. I wanted nothing to do with the Army because I was one of those, because as you know, Uncle Bobbie and I went to college together, both, football scholarships. And I was one of those like, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to do ROTC? So again, I always had a nice job to go back to in the summer back in our hometown of Boca Raton. But I think it was my I may be off, but I think it was my sophomore after finishing my sophomore year of college. I really didn't want to go home, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to this Army basic training, ROTC basic training. So I signed up to go, and one of the things that everybody had to do was apply for ROTC scholarship. When you went to basic training, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's all good. But that soldier stuff was kind of second nature. I mean, playing football, the leadership stuff was natural. The physical stuff was pretty easy because, I mean, you played football all your life. But, I went and I performed so well, they offered me a ROTC scholarship. I really had no idea what that meant at the time. So when I came back from basic training, Charlie Jenkins and myself, another football player, went together, and the ROTC instructor, Captain Bernie Fox, showed up at our practice one day because ROTC used to sponsor the athlete of the week for football. And he made this announcement that Cadet Patrick Williams won an ROTC scholarship. But again, I had no idea what that meant until Bobbie, one day, checking the mail, after we had our ad drop in college, you normally get your little check and all that kind of stuff for money. But mine was about $3,500 more than it normally was. And I realized at the time, when I looked at the itemized list, everything that football paid for, ROTC paid for. So I said, you know what? This is a pretty good deal. And then they're going to give me $100 a month stipend. So, that wasn't the real reason, but it helped. You know what I mean? Because I really wanted to do, I failed to mention this, but I had some little slight, not serious disciplinary issues, but I didn't want to join initially like Uncle Bobbie did, but it made sense for me. I said, you know what? After my sophomore year, I said, you know what? I need to tighten myself up and let me go. And it did what I needed to do from a disciplinary standpoint, but it didn't hurt that scholarship showed up as well. So that was my reason.
So you all have different reasons, right? Of why you joined. And what I heard also in your stories is just you connected with it, but then you also mentioned a little bit earlier about leadership. So how did your experience in the Army help shape your views on life and leadership?
You want to go first? I subject. This is something that I'm kind of passionate about because this is a daily journey. The basic fundamental definition of leadership is the ability to accomplish a mission. And but Colin Powell described it as the art of more than the science of management. But what that tells you is that great leaders can make things happen that ordinary people can't do. Sometimes we can make the impossible possible. And sometimes through leadership is a function of that. And what the Army did is, to me, it is enhanced the leadership skills that we already had. It allowed us to hone leadership skills that we had that was really normally connected through athletics. And we took those skills and applied them in the situations, i.e., like in the leadership reaction course. So that became the applicability for like how we can become great leaders. And we always believe in leadership by example. So setting an example meant something to me. Being a good leader meant something to me. Even today, I know people are looking at me, so I stated on the last podcast, I'm the president of the Military Officers Association of America here where I'm at. I have over 2,100 cadets in my catchment area. They all, when I have a major event, I'm the president. So they look up to me. And I describe this thing that I just talked about, being SAL, this scholastic aptitude to do the academic requirements of becoming an officer, the athletic ability, and get through the physical rigor that's required to be an officer, and the leadership skills and attributes that's necessary to be a great leader. So all those things I continue to hone each day, but in different settings and far as its applicability, Jessica.
So if I may, as I talked about with football in the Army, the leadership thing was, it all kind of the skills in football help with leadership as a cadet in the Army. But as for myself, being a long hauler 30 years, as I retired from the Army, a lot of people have difficulties transition. And I'll just tell this short story, and it's short. I really didn't want to work because, I had invested my money, and all those things, saved my money, invested my money, put my kids through college. Nobody has a student loan. But I didn't have to work. But, I had a friend, another Army guy retired, turned me on to this one position. And I went and had a lunch with the guy, and he talked about it. And I really didn't want to work. And I told the guy that. And, 2 days later, I had another interview with another company that paid probably 3 times as much money, but that's 3 times as much work. And I wasn't all about all that work because I don't want a whole lot of stress in my life. So probably a couple of days later, the guy sent me an email. Good guy, lawyer by trade, African-American guy. And I work for the Civil Rights Division, for the Texas Workforce Commission. And everybody kept telling me what the problems were and why they was having so many challenges with this particular department. And they say, sir, it's all training. And again, probably 50% of the folks that was in my department, at 22 folks, and the majority of them are investigators, were veterans or police officers. So there's some connection there already. They know what a colonel is in the Army, retired, and they probably think you're crazy coming in, you know what I mean? That's kind of a lot of people thought that. But I did what I normally do when I assume a position. Take 90 days and do an assessment, and just sit back and let the people kind of show and shape what needs to be done. And I kind of did that. But I figured out, everybody said it was training. These guys aren't trained. They're not training what they need to do. Well, the first thing I did, the first week I was on the job, everybody was in training. And as I'm talking to these folks in training, they're telling me, oh, I know, sir, I did that course in Maryland, 6 months ago. Another guy, I did that one 3 months ago in Maryland. I did that one virtually. Everybody attended training. I'm like, what are they talking about? No. What it took, and the Army taught me this. I said, and I told the guy I worked for, I say, Brian, it's not training, man. What they need is some leadership. And you got to put processes in place. And again, the Army taught me this. processes in place to drive to get change done. You know, as General Sullivan used to say, hope's not a method. You can't hope something's going to happen. You got to put processes in place. You got to take actions to get things done. And I sat back and let all those folks with all that experience train me on here's what our mission said. They told me. So I just sat back for 30 days and observed. 60 days and observed. 90 days, I know what needs to get addressed. You know what I mean? And we kind of struggled for a year. You know what I mean? Because people don't like hard change. But they ride in Cadillacs, all of them. Because every year our productivity increases. When I got here, we would close, let's say, 225 cases over a 12-month period. This year, the end of this month, we'll close out at 450, probably more than that. You know what I mean? And we work 100% remote. We was in the office when I got there, all 100% remote, because leadership makes stuff happen. You got to drive. And the Army told me, you got to drive the change you're trying to institute. Hope's not a method. Things aren't going to happen just because you just say, I want them to happen. That's not how it works. Army taught me that.
It sounds like, the Army really helped you with being able to observe, but then identify that change and results comes from leadership, which drive that. And it sounds like too connected with people. If people really were able to connect and share their concerns, and what they felt was driving this. So you both shared about leadership, and I know that you all love talking about Pearl City and where you were raised and growing up. How was leadership instilled in you all in at home in your childhood?
Well, I'll start off. First, you've heard them talk about setting the example. Our mom and dad both set the example. We knew that they were there for us, that they cared about us and our well-being. And just because of those kind of things, it sort of shaped us. And what is so wild, even though there's a gap in our ages, we all got the same kind of rearing, the same lessons and understanding about what was really important in life. And the family unit is the basis of that. And having two parents was definitely important. I know some kids can't really do anything about it, but having two definitely helped. And I know that as a parent myself, what kind of role the two parents play in the development of a child. So that's really the basis.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Jessica, is leadership by example. Our father and mother showed us what good leaders look like, what good leaders do, not what they say, what they do, which is fundamental. And we had a lot of different things that required. So it started with discipline, the regiment of things that was required to be done, like eating everything on your plate. It's non-negotiable. We can laugh about it, but it was serious business.
It was.
Not in the dishes in the sink.
Oh no.
Making up your bed. All of these things were necessary to drive the kind of individuals that we would become as well fundamentally point us in the right direction on what kind of leaders that we would desire to be. But we had good examples of what leadership. People can talk about all the leadership attributes and skills, but makes it different. I always tell leadership matters if you see good leadership. And you have individuals that actually, what Eddie described is really caring about your well-being, which then drives your leadership will become. If you want to add anything else to that, Dad Parker?
No, I was going to, but when you talk about Pearl City and what Pearl City and how it shaped us, you know, our mom and dad were always there, even after they divorced. Our dad was always there. He was, and it made a difference. You know, every time I go back home and I still see the same people doing the same thing, you know, it was your parents that made the difference.
Yep.
And I don't mean to get emotional, but it's all about that. It's the foundation of everything. You know, and you know, without that basic foundation, I mean, it all goes out the window. You like those other people, you know, and I got nothing against those other people, but that's why we all ended up where we're at now. You know, but discipline is the other thing. Bobbie was talking about the eating all your food and doing your chores and all that. Everybody had a chore, but it was discipline. And that discipline early on, that stayed with me all of my life to this day.
Yep.
You know, and then that thing called work ethic. You know, hey, why I made Colonel? I wasn't the smartest guy in the world. I just knew I was gonna work harder than anybody else. I know that. It'd be something. I mean, there wasn't no lack of work there. I was gonna get after it. You know, now I wasn't a dummy. I had all the tools, but I could do the extra work. And that work ethic and that discipline that was instilled in our parents, in us by our parents, I mean, it's the secret to the sauce. It is. And I tell guys that work with me now that are just, you know, and I'm talking about Black men, good father figures, guys saying, sir, I need to take some time because my kid has hey man, you go do what you got to do. Don't be worrying about this. You know what I mean? You go to your kid's school. You know what I mean? I got no issue with it, none of that, because I know the importance of a parent being in a kid's life, the positive change it makes. They're not there, problematic. So excuse me for getting a little emotional to the audience out there. I mean, whenever this is broadcast, but that foundation, it hits you. I felt it coming.
So one, I'm gonna say, Uncle Pat, do not apologize, because everything I do in my community is about doing what we don't often do, especially in the Black community. And I think a lot of times, you know, we're not comfortable showing up emotional, especially for men, Black men. So I welcome it, and I appreciate you being vulnerable. Now, I'm I'm an emotional person, so just know that if I join you, that is because I think it's so important for people to see this, and that this is a space where I want people to actually feel comfortable doing it. So do not apologize at all. But I heard you talking about, that foundation, all of you, where you all were raised, how that poured into you. Uncle Pat, you touched on something where we all have a choice, and sometimes you see people who made a choice, but parents make a huge impact on their children. Yes, Uncle Eddie, sometimes some kids can't control if there's two parents in a household, but I heard you all say that foundation was important. And even when they divorced, um, you know, your father, my grandfather, still showed up, and that was so important. So when you think about you being a father, and I'm gonna asking, all of you, you all have children. So what is the biggest lesson fatherhood has taught you, and how it changed you?
Um, Fatherhood, I what I've learned is to be a spring and not a drain. Be a spring. So my kids, I know that they're all different and they all provide something different. And I've never tried to drive them to what I want them to do. I've always left it up to them to be themselves. Um, I think that was an important lesson for me to have to. When they were young, I had all those chores and different things that we had learned as kids instilled in them, but I chose not to be as probably rigid as my dad could have been sometimes. And this is why I only wanted girls. I only wanted girls because I knew with girls I wouldn't be as hard, but I could still tell them something. Or if it was too much, I go tell their mom and let her tell them. Because sometimes, especially since I've had this stroke, the emotions, whatever I'm thinking, it just comes out. And I don't always want to do that. I want it to be logical and in a sensible explanation of whatever I'm saying to him. So for me, it's accepting them for who they are, understanding their differences, and allowing them to express their differences. That's what I've learned about fatherhood. Because I'm not gonna have any grands the way it looks, but that's what I've got out of this here.
Y'all
Go
want me
ahead,
to speak?
Bob.
Yeah, I think there's so many fundamental. I think Jessica, you and I talked some last time about legacy, but from a biblical standpoint, God told Abram, who became Abraham, that his father of many. And so, as a function of that, I always tried to instill in my kids that fundamental values that I gained, the core values that was instilled in me, try to instill in them, but as well be an example for them so that they
Yeah.
know to follow. As the scriptures said, teach a child, bring up a child in the way you want him to go. Later, if he departs, they'll know how to find their way back. Yes.
Yep.
So those fundamental things is core to who we are. Remember, the three great loves: the love of God, the love of family, and the love of
Yes.
all really started from a biblical standpoint of who we were as far as ground. But the other thing that fatherhood taught me well, being a grandfather, is that there is some um, that is required. Understanding the difference between the kids. Sometimes our expectations are so high. We expect a lot, and if they don't see or meet those expectations, it can sometimes cause disappointment. You have to be able to temper that with understanding that we all have strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
It's that SWOT analysis in the business community we call strength, weaknesses, opportunities. So you figure out what the are, what their weaknesses are, have opportunities to improve who they are in certain areas. And if there are threats to them, you're trying to help mitigate anything that can potentially be a threat. And so that's how fatherhood has shaped me. And being a grandfather is even better because I just lived out a dream with my going official college visit where they rolled out the carpet, picked us up in limousines, drove us over, put me up at the Marriott, the JW Marriott downtown. I mean, what an incredible weekend! But what that shows is all the things that I poured into them. Not only I poured into my kids, but also my grandkids. Anytime you can see things that come to fruition, you're proud. It's a proud moment. Not only do you can see everybody at that university want him to be there. They are invested in him already, even before he arrived. So those are the things that mean something to me, because if it means something to my kids and grandkids, it truly means something to me.
So, for me, I keep it kind of short there. Obviously I'm a father of, 3 daughters. The doctor said that each one was a boy when Lori first was pregnant. They said that every time. Boy, came out a girl. Boy, second one came out a girl. Boy, third one came out a girl. That was it. But the bottom line is, for me, it was, hey, the good and the bad I took away from our father. Was our father perfect? No, he wasn't. Was he a good man? He was. Were some things that I want to do different than my dad? Yes, as a father, without question. Yes. Definitely. And I did that. But I wanted to do those basic things to make sure they were disciplined. They had good work ethics, educated. Hey, the one thing Eddie B wasn't gonna have, your grandfather, is truants. That's not gonna happen. Kids ain't gonna be not going to school. That dog's not gonna hunt. You know what I mean? You were going to school, which, again, we all did. But I want to do the things that, and then some things that, our dad did the best he could with the resources that he had to ensure that we were able to do the things we need to do. He would whine sometimes about this or that. He didn't have the money. You know what I mean? But I tell you, Grandma Jerry would show up home. He would get there after he said he didn't have it, because she would have went up to the store and asked. He'll say he ain't got it. He'll beat her home, and here's the money. But he knew it was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? So those little things are just critical. The right things to do to ensure that your kids have all the opportunities that I didn't have. You know what I mean? And again, just basic stuff. Be disciplined, be educated, and have a work ethic. And if you have those, and I tell you, my kids, they say it all the time. Dad, people just have no work ethic. You know what I mean? I think that, or the Army, it's either the Army work, they use it all the time. It's just the people they work around. Dad, they lazy. You know what I mean? They just say, I don't get, they're not disciplined. You, you know, so, but those are some basic things. And again, I wanted to take all the good that my dad instilled in us, and then the bad, you know what I mean? You learn from that as well. Do it a little bit different, you know, things that you thought were not right. And Eddie B was a little rigid on some things, and those things there, I tried to be stay away from. And again, like Eddie stated, you know, uh, Lori could be a pretty good disciplinarian herself. So, you know what I mean? It kind of helps when you're both on the same agenda when it comes to raising your kids.
Yep.
One thing I really love about everything that you all shared is you identified that there were some things that you wanted to do differently with your children. But then also, I hear that there is some grace for your parents as well. I know me going through therapy, and one thing I learned is, there are a lot of people who are upset with their parents that didn't agree and are unable to identify that the parents did the best they could with the capacity that they have. So they're going through this life with anger and resentment. And unfortunately, that pours over into their children and how they're bringing them up or raising them or the relationship. But you all were able to identify that although you had a wonderful childhood, from what I'm hearing, I want to do this differently. And that is a part of legacy. It's not all about finances, right? Financially, what you're leaving, but it's also what you're instilling in them and what you're pouring into to your children. So I love that all of you touched on that because I think that is so important. So when you think about, you being a father and your children and your siblings and your grandchildren and just family in general, why is a strong family unit important? It's a lot of y'all. All right. I want to put that out there for anybody who think it's just the three of y'all. All right. So you come from a big family. So why is a strong family unit important to you?
Oh, number 4. Okay. A strong family unit is important. In a family unit should be a mother and a father, but that's those two parents. You still got to have that one parent, and they've got to have support. And as far as the military, what was good about that in family units, you knew as a person in the military that you were going to have to deploy. So you had to have a good home foundation so that they could endure while you're gone. And when I was in Hawaii, it was really different because we would go for like 40 days at a time, come back, leave again. So it's important that the family still continues to thrive even though you're not there. And what's strange is after you do so many of these deployments, sometimes you come home and it's like they don't even miss you because you just pick up and follow them and do what they're doing. You don't try to change anything because they've got their routine set up. So you just go along with it. I know one time I went to Laos and my daughter Hope wrote me a letter, and it really hurt me because she said she didn't miss me as much as she thought she would miss me because I was never home anyway. So even though there's that need for that family, you've got to have that. And sometimes family is the rest of the people that you're around. They become your extended family because you need them to make it through those tough times. Because when we deploy, it's hard. I know I've seen wives and I've been back when I've had to deploy people to Southeast Asia. And my wife would have to deal with all the other wives. But that's why you got to have that strong unit, that strong base and support, and people that understand, because my wife was having to deal with the same kind of things they were dealing with. Only thing I would tell her is, at least you get to see me at night. They don't always get to see their husbands or wives in some cases, because I had female mortuary affairs specialists on my team as well. But it was wild to see husbands running their home life while the wife is deployed, and they would have to do the same thing that I'm doing when I come back. You just fall in line and pick up and go wherever they say go, because that's what the family unit has to do, especially in the military. In the civilian life, it's a little bit different because you don't have those long extended periods with separation.
Anyone else kind of have a thought on that?
Well, I mean, just short. I mean, a lot of what Uncle Eddie said is spot on. You know, and you know, with your siblings, you know, growing up, obviously, I mean, you know, we have an email thread where we all, you know, stay connected, you know, with each other now. But you know, I have the same thing with the wife and the girls. I mean, we're just fortunate that we're actually all here in the greater Austin area. You know, I live in Round Rock. Emily lives in North Austin, which is probably a 15-minute ride for me from here. And the girls live in, you know, downtown Austin. So, which is about 25 minutes. So, you know, that's important, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's your family that's going to be there at the end of the day. I mean, you got your faith. I mean, that's important. But your family, you know, I mean, you have it because your faith is, you know, a lot of times you can't do this. You know what I mean? Feel it, but your family is there. I mean, you got to have those folks. You got to be able to pick up the phone and talk to them, and that unit is just important. And again, I know that because we had that growing up. Lori comes from 8 kids as well. You know what I mean? With a set of twins. So I mean, she had a big family as well. So I mean, that's important. You know what I mean? You just have to have that good, strong family bond to endure.
Yeah, other thing I would add, Jessica, one thing that separates our family from a lot of families, to be honest with you, it goes back to our Uncle Wardell in the family reunion, which is fundamentally to the core to who our family is. It's that strong root which builds the foundation for our family. So, for example, you know, what is the 43rd, 44th family reunion that will be held in Long Beach, California? I'll be out there. But it is that the emphasis on family throughout our entire lifetime has been important, because families serve a couple other functions as well. A support system when you need somebody to lean on, and it's very important, Jessica, when you have tragedies. Like I had a tragedy, and when I lost my oldest son, you need a strong family is paramount. It is critical when you have really things that happen tragic in your life as well. Is sometimes it's easy when everything is going well, but it's those difficult and dark days where family really make a difference. I remember when I lost my son, it was at about the time we was changing. We went from a be all you can be army to an army of one, and we had transitioned to Army Strong. God kept coming to me, telling me that I need to be strong for my family because they are hurting really bad. They're at a dark place. And so that's why family matters. You need to watch those TV show Family Matters. But family really does, it really does matter, in so many different aspects of our life. But it's paramount when you have tragedy, things that happen unexpectedly to you. So that's why I think our family has been very strong, and we've always stuck together.
So and thank you for sharing, Uncle Bobby, and sharing the transparency of, just experiencing tragedy and having family. And you all, for the most part, are pretty close, which a lot of families can't say the same. A lot of siblings can't say the same. I'm pretty close with my siblings as well, and a lot of people cannot believe that. And I have 7 siblings, and for the most part, I'm pretty close with all of them. But it really not only shapes who you are and how you experience life, but it brings a sense of joy that I feel like all of you can also share the same because of your bond. So when you think about your relationship, right? And I'm going to ask you all, you don't have to tell your age, but I do want you to tell us the age gap. But when you think about your relationship, how has it evolved from, childhood to adulthood when you think about the bond between the 3 of you? And again, before you answer, I just want to ask, what's the age difference between you? Because I know Uncle Eddie is the oldest.
I'm 66.
I'm 61.
And I'll be well, Uncle Bobby's obviously a year older than I am. So I'll turn 60 on the 15th of July, and Uncle Bobby be 62 on
61.
right. I'm sorry, 61 on 27th July.
Right.
Okay. So y'all be the same age at one point.
Yep.
Yes. We're
Yep.
Irish.
That's
That's
why
what
the
it
Irish
is.
twins.
All right. So I
That's
wanted
right.
to kind of share that because of the age difference, and I know Uncle Eddie talked about that earlier. So when you think about just your relationship, how has it evolved from when you all were kids to now being adults?
Well, I will talk first because, like I said, I left home in 1980 and joined the Army. In 86, December of 86, I went to Pat and Bobbie's commissioning. So that's when we really got to connect again once we all joined the military. Once, even though we were in different locations, that was something that we were all into, that we could share different experiences. And I thought that was just really important. Um, Being the oldest and the example setter, to share some of my experiences. Um, when I went to Fort Ord, I was a young second lieutenant. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I was an infantry officer. So I did all this training was when I was a platoon leader, and then I went to be the assistant 3, and I'm planning all these here missions and activities like the CG's marksmanship matches. All of that led me to some of the experiences I could share with them. Um, like visiting Bobbie, Pat at different locations where they were stationed. That's how it's been. And like I said, when we were growing up, I was the oldest, so I went away pretty early. I remember going fishing, burning copper, the lawn service, and stuff like that. But I went away in 76. So the Army brought us back together again because of those shared experiences. When Pat came here, Bobbie was here in 08, Pat came here that summer as a distinguished visitor speaker at camp. That was getting us all together. Matter of fact, it was sort of wild for me because I'm a civilian at the time with the beard, just like I have now. I had to go home and shave it off and put my greens on because my colonel wanted this picture with the three brothers. So that is really our shared experiences. Like Pat, wherever he's moved to, Bobbie, wherever he's moved to, I've always went to those locations. Like I visited Pat in where he's there at Hood, Bobbie when he was working at the Pentagon. Those Army experiences get you to share, and especially some of the trials and the tribulations that you go through, even in the Army. So,
well, Jessica, I can talk just briefly about this. How it evolved for me. Because remember, Eddie kind of was like my mentor. That's how we was kind of paired up based on the bottom four. And the regiment, so the continuation of the regiment and discipline was encouraged. Eddie like didn't make me do anything. Like he didn't make me go run them 6 to 10 miles in the morning with him or wherever we were going to run. I loved doing it because I looked up to him. He was my hero. You see what I'm saying? So I and just to make and finish runs with him was a great thing. Also, I always tell people that like getting a hand-me-down was a badge of honor. You know, some people who saw like getting a hand-me-down, like kids now, like they want you to take some of their siblings' clothing, their perfectly good clothing. I saw it as a badge of honor to get something from my brother Mike or Eddie as a result of that. But it also, it also provided that foundation with respect to he had laid out a roadmap. Ain't necessarily a blueprint. This is how you have to do it, but the roadmap was laid. He encouraged us, because our parents encouraged us to go get education, and so I knew, and Eddie emphasized, in order to do that, you need to get your grades. Like if you want to get this full football scholarship, you need to get your grades. You need to be at school. So I never missed school. So I was always at school. So those things in our relationship over time, because then you become an adult. Now we transitioning from childhood experiences to adult experiences where we're in college, we're commissioning. Now we're in the United States Army. Now we have these shared experiences. I can reflect on things that he can tell us about. Hey, when I went through the Officer Basic course, this is what I had to do. I know we all went to different Officer Basic courses, but he can tell you the essence of what it was going to be like to go through that particular course in the training that was required to go ahead, continue to matriculate you through the process. So, and then like Eddie shared that over time, we always visited each other, came to a location. You have another question on here, talk about one of your fondest memories. I got a couple. Eddie kind of shared the one in 2008. That was a big one for us. That was big. That was a monumental. That's what I was going to talk about. But so that's kind of how our journey, at least my journey to even to the person who I am today. Eddie talks less now. He used to talk a lot. But he is correct. He talks less. And I probably talk the most. So over time we have evolved and changed.
Yeah, one thing, and I'll just regress just a taste and then get on point. I remember one thing that Eddie told us when we were getting ready to go to college. Because again, when in '76, when Eddie left to go to college, Bob and I had just finished sixth grade. Again, obviously we're young. So, but the one thing he told us about college and going to college, he said this: whatever you do, leave the state of Florida.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get that at the time, but he said leave the state of Florida. And when I look back on that, it all made sense, because as I was in college and doing the things that we were doing, playing football and all that kind of stuff, and ROTC, and you kind of got a path where you're going. You always would see these guys you knew, some from Delray, guys that played ball or whatever. What they may be somewhere, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, Florida, wherever. But all of a sudden you see them back home because they don't drop down, because all the distractions for being home in the state of Florida. So, that little nugget of leave the state of Florida, it put us in the cornfields of Iowa. It did. But we was able to go together. You know what I mean? We was able to go together. And obviously, I met my wife there, and now I've been married 37 years here tomorrow. But, that's a small thing, but leave the state of Florida, your home. But it made a heck of a difference. But, the highlight was we all got together at that one event. You know what I mean? It was a great event. You know what I mean? And it just all came and worked out the right way. I was actually stationed in Fort Leavenworth at the time, if I remember right. I was stationed in Fort Leavenworth.
Yeah.
And Eddie was at Knox. Bobbie was at DC, out at Howard University, working in ROTC. And hey, I'm right there. I don't know. I was only wherever the distance is, 4-5 hours away, whatever it is, close enough. That was a treat. You know what I mean? All of us to be in the same battle space. Because when you think about it, my first two in the Army, I was in Germany. So obviously you got separation. I think when I got back, I think Bobbie went to Germany. At some point, I think Bobbie went to Germany. And probably by this time, Eddie's at the point where he's a major. He's in Hawaii. You know what I mean? So you all kind of not together again. You still serving. You still keeping in touch, but you're in different parts of the world doing the business of the Army. But that 2008 event, the crown jewel.
Crown jewel.
It was the crown jewel.
Yeah, because Justin, you got to think about this in these terms. And this is one of your follow-on questions. You got to think about this. Eddie is at Cadet Command, retired. He's the cadet, he's the analyst for the United States Army Cadet Command. I'm at Howard University, a professor of military science, and battalion commander. I'm coming there to be the warrior team chief. I have combat water survival skills training, the rappelling tower, and river crossing. The guest speaker at the class that he was in 20 years before, it was called back then, but it's the Leaders Training Course at Fort Knox, Kentucky. All of us there together at one time. And you got to remember Pat told you about his journey to get there that summer between the sophomore year and his junior year, that decision. See, there's always critical decisions in your life, Jessica, that changed your trajectory, or it can change Your asthma or meals.
Bob, those were my exact words. Yes. Get you on
So
asthma. Stay the course on azimuth. Learn all and be all you can be.
That's right, brother.
so you all have talked about this 2008 event. Do you feel like that is one of the memories that you have that just so you talk about, you all work basically around the world and never worked together, but was that like the one moment or memory that you can recall that you felt like was a strong bond moment between the three of you?
Well, it was that one. And then in 1986, when we got commissioned, Eddie was already a serving on active duty, and he comes to University of Northern Iowa at our commissioning
Yep.
ceremony. And we put on our butter bars, become second lieutenants in the United States Army. So that was numero uno, the first one. That's a memorable event. We're all there together. And then that 2008 event, I mean, you come full circle. I guess that'd be 22 years later, if my math is right. That's when that happened. And for me, I had just come out of spending 15 months in Iraq. You know what I mean? And I think I was pretty much winding down my time in battalion command at the time. And that was a long haul. But the cherry and the icing on the cake was I knew that event was coming.
Yeah,
it was taking place that summer.
Other one, it was 219. I'm being to the Hall of Fame at the University of Northern Iowa.
Yep.
2008, Pat was inducted in the Hall of Fame 2 years, I think 2 years maybe prior.
Mm-hmm.
And we're there again together, sharing this moment that we're all there, and we understood the journey. We all had different journeys, different paths that we went out on. And, the combination of anybody's career is like, I was proud of Pat when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Not only inducted in the University of Northern Iowa's United States Army Hall of Fame. So he's achieved, a significant milestone in his life. But again, it was another proud moment for all of us to come together, family to come together, thinking about where we started from. I was rappelling off domes and running up and down stairs in the dome and in cornfields, laying on ground, and my teammates think I'm crazy, not understanding the principles of war, offense, defense, mass. You see what I'm saying? All the things that I was still learning, I was learning in the textbook through ROTC that are applicable to guys who understand offense and defense and the general when they talk about going on the battlefield on the football field. It's a different kind of battlefield. But all of those fundamentals was learned. But that was another one of those moments we're all together. And think about where we started. We're now two brothers are on the wall in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and Jessica, and again, because of the age difference, I think, Eddie retired in 2020, 21?
2020.
2020. And he went in, worked as a civilian for a period of time. But Uncle Bobbie and I, again, because of the whole Irish twin thing, high school together, playing football together in high school, playing football together in college, joining the Army together. And, obviously, I mean, we had a significant bond, the two of us, and what we were doing in our tracks and so on and so forth. I think one time Uncle Bobbie and I was on the same in the same battle space for, I don't know, maybe less than a year.
Yeah,
When
about 6.
yeah, I think I had just finished school at Fort Leavenworth, and Uncle Bobbie was in the class behind me. You know what I mean? But that was the one time we was really in the same battle space. I mean, and I think Uncle Eddie was probably in Hawaii, if I remember right.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
no, Eddie was at Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was
And okay, all right, okay, that's 90, 98? 98, 99.
Yes, 98. I was 95 to 2000. I was at Knox and I retired.
Okay, got it.
And then I went to work for ROTC where I was working at an Army.
Yeah.
Yep. I worked for the Army as a resource manager. I retired, went away for 6 or 7 months because they had this big riff at Fort Knox. And then I came back and worked there as a civilian for 13 and a half years, 18 and a half for total service time. So I did my 38 and a half, brother.
I hear you. Loud
So
and clear.
thinking about the three of you and success, right? I think that you all would agree that you're successful, in a role model for individuals that maybe you grew up with, for the family, for your children. Um, I see that, and I'm sure you also would agree. But when you think about each other, right? You have this bond, even though there's an age gap, you all were very still supportive of one another. So how have you all been intentional about supporting one another in your individual pursuits of success? Right? You're all across the country, the world, in different places, but even now, like, how do you support one another? Because you all are still very successful after retirement and the things that you're doing.
Well,
The first thing I would say is,
go ahead, Uncle Eddie.
there's a chat, the daily text. So that's one of the main ways we stay in touch, the daily text. Bobbie calls me sometimes, Pat, they know I ain't much on the phone. So, but we do the text daily, and that's how we stay in touch.
Yeah.
From my perspective.
Clear, DP.
No, go ahead, Bob.
Well, I think the other thing is because we have so many other shared experiences. It just like last week I was on the prayer line with a church on behalf of your mom. They asked me to come on and speak about really about family and core values. But it's those things, because we have a lot of things in common in shared experiences, or even support someone. Like when Ann was the women's auxiliary president, I used to escort her to every one of her events, and so that was huge for her, as well with a proud moment for me, because I'm proud of my sister. She got this big, powerful position. There's a lot of people that look up to her, and then things that we're doing, they reciprocate. Like if I'm doing a military ball for cadets or a fundraiser, they support it. One of my other siblings, they're doing something that needs support. We support each other, and I think that from a holistic standpoint is something that we do. But the text daily is a confirmation or validation. Hey, that we're still here, and it's just how the weather's doing today or whatever the case may be. Like tomorrow, I'll be out feeding the homeless. I normally talk about that because that was one thing our mother, your grandmother, was very passionate about people and looking at for the least of these, because the Bible said the meek shall inherit the earth. And I think so often we forget about those who are. Because you and I discussed last time mental health, and I talked to you about mental health being it's just like any other therapy, but we just look at it different, and that's all the people I'll see tomorrow out between these 4 feeding sites is also emblematic of some of the discussions that we'll have in the chat.
So, that was all spot on there, Bob. And I'm really just in envy of all the work that Bobbie's doing, all the charitable work that he's doing, feeding the homeless, the work he's doing with veterans, the time he's spending with those military associations. That's a lot of work, and I think there may be an event that he may have coming up there. I still probably need to buy something, because I'm always going, whatever it is, I'm buying something. But I'm gonna do that, one, because I'm supporting my brother, and those efforts and the things that he's doing, because it's important and it's good work. You know what I mean? It's great work that he's doing there. So, I mean, again, I can't get to an event. Maybe I can sponsor 4 or 5 cadets so they can go and just provide the money. I mean, same thing, the event that I couldn't go to, this event we had in February at our alma mater, ROTC ball. So I just, sponsored some cadets to attend. But, but there's a lot of good things that Bobbie's doing. And again, I'm just in envy because he's doing all that. And like, man, that's a lot of great stuff. It is. Yeah, I got a job and, I enjoy what I do. I do. I can work from home. I can look out and see my pool every morning. I just look out there and I may have to go fish out some leaves. But, I don't want no stress in my life. And that's what I have. I can work from the house. So for me, life is, it's peaceful. It's great. No issue. We were talking about the importance of family. And, I don't have a lot of stress in my life. All my people work remote. So it's important because I'm a people person. I love talking to people. I don't want to do all that email and all that. I ain't got time for it. Be typing a whole bunch of emails. Hey, they got that dictation stuff now where you can talk and send stuff. Hey, okay, I'll do all that. You know what I mean? Even on email. I got it. But I still prefer to talk because that's important. So I just talk to my folks all the time. And, I have a young lady that works for me. She's a retired master sergeant in the Army. And just chatting with her, she's having some issues. She's a caregiver for a mother. She has, I think, a couple of her grandkids that she's taking. So she's having some struggles. You know what I mean? And she was just telling me about, because, hey, when supervisor calls me and tells me this, I go into Army mode. What the Army taught me kicks in automatically. So, you're going to reach out. Give people some time, but you reach out and you check on their, doing basically health and welfare. You want to see how they're doing, talk to them. And the young lady just cried because I called her. But that's what you do.
No, Justin, we getting it towards your.
And the one point about family there, because I almost got emotional again. She said she couldn't even get that from her family. but I call it. It's important. Family.
Yeah.
Strong bond. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. It makes life so much easier.
Go ahead, Uncle. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
I think you threw us. We getting towards your end time. I want you.
I know. So I think for all of you to share just your responses was important about how you're supporting one another, even though you still live in different states and cities. It's so important. But it all went down back to the foundation, if you ask me, of how you all were raised, family, the start of it. I heard all of that in a little bit of everything that you shared, individually, even though you had different responses. So I I love it. Now I want to ask you all, I just want you to tell me briefly one thing that you and Uncle Pat kind of touched on about this with Uncle Bobbie, and Uncle Bobbie, you've shared your feelings about Uncle Eddie being your hero, but what is one thing that you admire most about each other? If you can just give me one sentence something that you admire.
Oh well,
Um,
for me, just taking our Eddie, just is resilience. Eddie was the oldest kid. The oldest kid, obviously, uh, you you're held to the higher standard in everything. I mean, growing up with family 8 kids, I mean, you just are. Um, but Eddie was resilient through all of that. You know, uh, worked at Turner's Nursery. Had a job, played football, ran track, loved tennis, played the guitar, but was resilient. And served his nation. Served as a civilian, had a resilient, and that's important. His resilience. I mean, and just continuing with the fight and continue serving. And then for Uncle Bobby, it's again, man, I talked about it a little bit. All he's doing, that's good when it comes to serving. Something that your grandmother, our mom, was all about, serving to the end. You know what I mean? But that I admire, because sometimes you start these things and the steam runs out. But that's been going on now for several years. And it I think it's his it's his lifeblood now. That's what he's doing. So that's my 2 cents related to that.
well, I got two things. On I know you all know about types. Pat, to me, is a type B. A sort of carefree individual, highly successful, even though you could say he's carefree, he made Colonel. So that's an important thing. Bobbie is more or less a type A like me, um, highly regimented and also successful. And like Pat, I'm just amazed at all the work he does for others. Um, I help my neighbors out around me, but I don't do any of the kind of work that he's doing. So I just like to say that it's a blessing for him to be able to do that and to have it, because our mom was about taking care of people. The last time I saw my mother alive was at the Helping Hands in Boca. That was my memory. of her. And that's what she was about, helping people and helping others. But we are from a good family of highly organized people. And like Pat and Bobbie both said, it's sort of wild when I go back to Pearl City and I look at some of the other people, even the ones that moved away from there, none of them really did what we did. And I'm like, well, they were in the same environment. What was different? What was different was the parents and what was taught to us at home. And with my dad could have been a doctor or a lawyer, but he liked the fast life and he had to work hard once he had the 8 of us. Because when I was born, my dad was already 27. So he had to learn and accept the responsibility, but he had that work ethic. There is no better one for that work ethic in what I remember. He would work at the city and come home and we would go fishing, burn copper. Then he got a truck. Then we were cutting lawns. We were always doing something to make money. Even when he had the restaurant, we moved from the restaurant to the bar, but he was always doing something to make money to provide for us so that we had the things we needed. And that work ethic, it spread to all of us. One thing we all talk about when we get together is the work ethic and how important it is to all of us. I just can't say enough about the rearing, and to have a loving and caring mother like ours. It was just a perfect. Like I told you, I wouldn't trade living in Pearl City with the kind of rearing we had for nothing in the world.
Yeah. So
nothing.
Real quick, Jessica, one thing I admire both. So like Dad Parker, some people don't even believe my brother Patrick, my Irish twin, Dad Parker. Like he's this mellow guy. Now, but they remember Crazy Pat from college, like a lot of but so when they see him now, it's a major transformation for them to see how he has evolved. And so he's serious, but not overly serious. Like I could be too serious, or I could be serious where people don't think I'm approachable. Then when they get to know me, oh man, you the best, but start is that type A that kick in, right? And so become very regimented, that, like, hey, no time to mess around. It's about business and so on and so forth. With Eddie, always, again, he set the example. He was the gold standard. So when I needed a person to look up to, I knew I didn't have to look far. And even when he was away, I knew what the gold standard looked like. And so that was always and to today, that was the case. He's my big brother. We have another brother, our brother Alan. But he was our brother and the big brother in the house. And so that's what I admire about both of them, because they have evolved. Patty's evolved and changed, and I think them 3 girls and the wife changed, and Eddie, he's been steadfast the same kind of way. But you can count on all both of them. So that's a great thing, and a lot of people don't have that.
So I asked that question specifically because I feel like, at times it's hard for us to celebrate ourselves and really think about the things that, we like about ourselves, but then sometimes even look out within, look outside of ourselves and think about what we admire and are inspired by others. So I wanted to hear that from you all. not just because you're my uncles, but then also because you are successful Black men. And I think it's important for other men to hear it's okay to be able to share that about someone else that may be, within your circle. So my community outside of my podcast is really women. I always say that, I want to inspire the Black and brown community, men in the Black and brown community. That's not my ministry. I'm aware of that. But I want to hear from you all because of your upbringing, the success, the work that you're doing, your leadership, and then just the family unit and values that you have. Why do you think it's important to have positive Black role models in our community? And if just one or two of you can share why you think it's important.
Spokesman Bob,
Yeah. What's that?
you take it. Take it.
Okay. Well, this fundamental to, because this is what I deal with right now every day at the Boys and Girls Club. Some, as I talked before on a previous podcast, some kids don't have positive role models who are Black men in their life. And so I stand in the gap. I'm a person who I also believe just getting ready to have my career, my choice. I invite 2 women, 2 men. I speak myself, and it's good for people. Like last week, I brought in a pilot, Black pilot. He was inspired by the Tuskegee Airmen. That's why he wanted to be a pilot. I brought in another guy that knows the history, Emmy Award winning journalist, producer, writer. And he came and talked about the history. He has a passion for African history. And he came in and he talked about it. But for them to see positive Black males and role models, to me is always important. The CEO of the Boys and Girls Club is a retired Sergeant First Class. He's a Black man named Will Armstead, a wonderful individual, doing a lot of things. And youth development is what we do. Because you remember the last time I told you, but one of the most important things I do, Jessica, is 3 things really: motivate, inspire, and encourage our youth to be better. That's what I try to do every day. The mission of JROTC is to motivate young people to be better citizens. It's about citizens, not about joining the military, but it's about becoming a better person. So anytime I can inspire young people to be better, you can see like the days, like I would there last Friday. They're gonna say, "Where Mr. Will at?" They call him Mr. Will, Williams short. And because I'm invested in them. And sometimes they don't have that in some of their lives where there's no Black male figure that's invested in their life, who's not present. And so and I told you last time, like right now I'm giving 28 to 30 hours a week to the Boys and Girls Club. And so because I know the difference it'll make. And where my club lies, Jessica, is right in the heart of the projects. You see what I'm saying? So the kids there live a different type of life. And so, but to me, it's not only, it's critical. It's essential that we have people of color, especially Black men of color, who can be, because some kids don't have hope. Pat talked about hope is not a method, but when you don't have any hope, it can be a very dismal situation. And so that's why I think it's very important that we have those individuals like myself. And I always remind my guys in my brotherhood. I got 30 guys in my brotherhood. They'll all come at different times to do different things. That it's important they have a wealth of knowledge. It's important for these young people to see them. they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're dentists. All of these guys are, superintendent of schools. These are very distinguished individuals who had outstanding careers, and it's important for our young people to see.
Hey, thank you, Uncle Bobbie. And I know that you did share a little bit in the last podcast. So I wanted to be able to hear why it's important from your experience, especially being that the three of you have been so successful in your careers. So this is my favorite question of the podcast. This is my last question. And it's one that I find to be very important because when I think about legacy, for me, it has been me having a relationship with younger Jessica and healing some of the things that I had to work through along my journey. So I'm going to ask each of you, and I'm going to start, oldest to youngest. But if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say? And when you think about the question, it is truly if you could sit down, okay, with younger Eddie, what would you say
Oh no.
to would you what would you say to him if you could have
Oh
a
no.
conversation with your younger self?
I would tell him, stay on the azimuth, keep doing what you're doing, but do better in school. Be better in school. It'll help you in college. Like I started off as a business major. You won't see any signs of that on my transcript because I was trying to play football and do business and it didn't work out. So that's why I switched to law enforcement. But that was my entrance.
Well, Jessica, mine is the same. Like I told you last time, it was learning to how to delegate much early. Some things that and I told your audience before. A lot of times it was hard for me to. It was a function of two things: both trust, and if they're going to meet the standard that I want to have. Like if I say go prepare this brief, I could have done, but I thought it was, a younger Bobbie Williams would say, listen here, go ahead, say. Sometimes there's more important things that you needed to do that I can delegate. So and it's hard on a lot of people, not just old Bobbie Williams, but it's hard on a lot of folks to sometimes to delegate things that they're important, but but other people have the ability. Sometimes you just have to give them a chance.
Well, for me, it's if I had to, what would I say to my younger self is just looking back on my life, stay the course, because you really don't want to, because I'm kind of okay with where I'm at in my life. But I would tell myself, you got to work harder. I'm talking my younger self, because I think I was able to play football in college, my natural athletic ability. I didn't work hard, lifting weights and running and all of that, like, you see athletes today. It was my natural God-gifted talent that allowed me to go play college in football, earn a scholarship, join ROTC, and retire after 30 years in the Army. That was it. But work harder, young man. Study harder, young man. And really stay the course. You know what I mean? Stay the course on, because again, I'm okay with my life. I am, but I would say that to myself: work harder, study harder, and don't take it for granted. And I think when I was a younger guy, I took a lot of it for granted and just used my natural talent to get me through what was taking place in my life. I just didn't work hard at it. And I say that now because I look at the blood and sweat young men today, and how hard they work. Those that are athletes in college. Haley works in University of Texas Athletics. So you see how hard people work, male and female. I mean, you see how hard both academic, but also when it comes to that particular sport, they work hard. I mean, I don't think I did a fifth or a tenth of what I see kids doing. You know what I mean? Now, I know when I say this because I recall between our freshman year in college and sophomore year, the time that Uncle Bobbie put in the gym, I was probably doing the wrong things. You know what I mean? Because he was fit to fight, ready to rock and roll. Now, I was a starting running back. You know what I mean? I was, not like I wasn't playing. You know, I had went in there as a freshman and stole some senior position, but I hadn't worked. I didn't. I didn't work hard. I wish I could go back and tell that fella, work harder, man. Pay the price. You know what I mean? You got to pay the piper. And I may still be where I'm at today, but I wouldn't have to make that comment because I just know I didn't work as hard as I could have or didn't study as hard as I could have. And again, I got a couple master's degrees, but yeah, I had to do those by taking a full-time job or staying in the Army and going to school on the weekends and being away from your kids and all that kind of stuff. But okay, it's just what I had to do. It probably been a heck of a lot easier if I had put the work in back in the day. But okay, that's all I got.
Well, I appreciate the three of you coming on my platform and just sharing your story. You all have inspired me as a child and even as an adult to really not only stay connected with the family, to pour into the family and our community, but to be successful. Because I look up to all of you. So I appreciate you being here. I love you for just being honest and transparent and creating this space that I hope will inspire and bless others. And I am just so grateful for each of you. So thank you for joining me on my podcast.
Can I make a
And
comment?
I am just so excited for this opportunity for people to hear your story.
So if I may say something before we close out,
Yes.
Jessica, you just don't know how proud we are of you and all you have done in your career. I mean, we are. Couldn't be happy for the success that you have had. And when I heard about this, there's no way I'm not going to participate in this. You know what I mean? Just no way. So again, thank you for the opportunity. We're just so proud of what you've done with this platform and just so proud of everything you've done with your life. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am honored to have y'all here. So thank you. All
Okay.
right, y'all. I will see you on the next podcast.
Okay. Take care. Yep. Bye.